Welcome to Wisdom Blogs. My name's Lisa Collins, and this week I'm joined by an extremely, very special friend of mine, Amber Topaz. I have known you for must be about 13 or 14 years now, and you've lit up my life, I have to say that, in a very colourful way. And I really wanted to bring you on here today to talk a little bit about your creative process. Just to give everybody a little bit of background on who you are. You are a international performance artist. You've won loads of awards. You are a creative, multi-creative person. And in the last couple of years, you've turned that creativity into artwork. You've created an oracle deck. I have to say, when I was thinking about our interview the last couple of days, I know quite a few creative people, but you're the only one who I know who has made costumes, who has written their own songs, has produced their own videos, has done albums. You know, I speak to you one day and you say, "Oh, I'm gonna, you know, do a parody on, you know, Lady Gaga's Lady Garden." 2 weeks later, it's done. It's written. It's choreography. That you've done your costumes. It's up. It's published, and I'm just so happy to have you here chatting with you, my beautiful friend. And I just want to find out all about this juicy process that you go through from your idea to execution, because it seems very magical. And yeah, how do you do it? And welcome.
Oh, thanks for having me, Lisa, and what a glorious introduction. Wow, do you know what? I think it's that what I've learned is I do follow my joy. So, you know, there seems to be this new thing about people saying, oh, you know, follow your joy. It's not a new thing for me. I could have told you that 15 years ago. And so what I noticed was, going backwards a little bit, when I was trained in theatre, musical theatre, but when I went into musical theatre, it wasn't joyful for me. And so that was a big shock. And so I was like, well, how can I have all these skills? Where can I channel all those skills now? Because I've done all this training my whole life and I've gone into this and it doesn't feel joyful for me. And what I realized is that I was actually an artist. So I'm not saying that people in those shows are not artists, but some people feel comfortable as a cog in the wheel, and they feel comfortable, you know, in someone else's vision. And I realized that actually that felt very limiting for me, being in someone else's vision. Like I was the visionary, I was the creator, I am the creator, and so the juiciness and the joy was in the whole process for me. And I think I wish I could remember the quote, but I saw the quote not long after of David Bowie saying, you know, that it can be really something about it being really limiting, being inside someone else's vision, that you won't do your best work. Yeah. And that for me is true. So for me, I guess when I stepped out of that, when you start kind of when you really start emitting your own vibration, so you're not just, you've got these skills, you can sing, you can dance, you're funny, you can act, whatever, but you're in someone else's vision, then it'll always feel limited. You're always a little bit like a bird in a cage. And then when you step outside that, and then you go, well, I'm just going to use a bit of that, and I'm going to use a bit of that, and I'm going to use a bit of that, and I'm going to play with that. And playfulness as well. I've always got massive, you know, children are brilliant. You just have to look at children, how inventive and creative they are. And I think that, you know, drawing on that playfulness and that sense of, it doesn't really have to be going anywhere. I'm just playing with this idea and I'll just have a go. So going back to your Lady Garden reference, I made a video for Lady Gaga's called it Lady Garden. I made all the costumes from the pound shop, from the gardening section.
Brilliant.
I called my friend up. I was like, can I borrow your garden? I didn't even have a garden. And yeah, and the weather wasn't great. And so we ended up doing it over 2 days because I'm a brilliant friend, Jason, who's amazing Jason Reed, who's amazing videographer and creative as well. And so I was like, do you want to do this video? We had to go back the next day because it rained so much. But, you know, the joy of editing, you can have the sun in. And yeah, so it's, for me, it's the whole thing. It's like, it's the juiciness of creating the whole thing. And I think because I have I'm so visual that, you know, I kind of see it. And that's part of, like, when people say about manifesting things, I can manifest what I need. And sometimes, you know, quite spectacularly, because I can see. It's like you know, you have to see it to make it a reality. And so yeah, it's like seeing things in Technicolor, and then being able to, you know, pick up all the bits and bobs, and as you go along, your skills increase. So, you know, you're making costumes out of gardening section from the pound store. But, you know, as you do this more and more and more, then your skills get better. And it's the same with everything, like the years of training in singing, dance, and stuff like that. And I'm naturally playful, so that is more spontaneous. And so not all my ideas are you know, work out, but I think that because of the playfulness, I'm able to let go of perfection and just give it a go, and then go, yeah, because I'm always full of ideas.
Yeah. And do you think as well, there's something in it about, like you said, about letting go of the perfectionism, and within that playfulness, and you said about kids, you know, they play for the sake of playing because it's just fun. And so what it feels like, you know, especially with the Lady Gardener, I'm going to put it below because it is hilarious. And it all, you know, did you do that just because it was a good idea, it's fun, regardless of the outcome of it, you know? Because it feels, from what you're saying, that a lot of your creative process is you're following your joy, but you've had an idea, and it's just something, just like a really good thing to do. It makes you feel good creating it, regardless of the outcome. Is that right? Am I explaining that right?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, you know, you sometimes create things, you hope for an outcome of, you know, maybe something to, at the time, because that was quite a long time ago now. I think that was about, it could have been 11 years ago that I created that video. And at the time, you know, there wasn't much stuff like that about, or, you know, so I think at the time I had a hope that it might go viral, and it didn't. But then you have to have a goal. Yeah. And so the goal is like, well, I'm going to make a funny video. It would be amazing if it went viral, but the point is how many people enjoyed it. So, you know, it's like bringing that playfulness and joy and creativity and color and, you know, silliness to, you know, and there's still so many people watch it now and said it still makes them giggle. And that's the point of, you know, there's always, you make it for you. So art really should make it for you, because if you're out looking for approval outside yourself, then you're always going to be disappointed.
Yeah,
that was a big lesson to learn. But, you know, we also want to make a bit of a living from it as well, ideally a living from it, which is also quite rare. And so there's always a little bit of that intention in it, or else you wouldn't be funneling so much energy into it. Yeah. But ultimately, you know, for the giggles, you know, it's if you've made someone laugh, then there's a transaction in that in itself, isn't it?
Yeah. And I was just thinking, you're right, it was about 10, 11 years ago, because it was when Nia was a baby. And do you remember you came out to Wendover and did that burlesque workshop with me and all the mums from my postnatal group as a way of kind of just getting back in touch with our bodies? You know, we had young babies and we were exhausted, and we had this idea, and you came out and you took us through this process, and yeah, it was fantastic and hilarious. And there were so many amazing comments afterwards from the mums of just being able to just dress up and have fun and reconnecting with their body, and in a really sexy way and in a feminine way. And you woke Wendover up, basically, darling.
Bent over, went over.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's the same with the way because I don't hold many workshops. I hold workshops. I do work many workshops, and I've done many workshops, but usually on request. And I know that was requested, and it was so fun because I don't do choreography. I'm not actually a choreographer, so I don't do workshops with choreography. So again, it's always focused on the playfulness and like just really enjoying your body and remembering to enjoy yourselves and not take yourself too seriously. And so that's kind of, it's always been the play that's, the play that's kind of the playful comedy stuff that people have wanted to experience with me, because it does take everyone into their inner child, but then it's bringing that energy up along with like, well, you can be a sexual goddess, but you can actually have fun with it as well. It doesn't have to be serious and heavy and and salacious. It can just be really, really fun.
I have this image of all these sort of new mums going into the village hall in our fishnet stockings and high heels.
And at the end of it looked like loads of colourful chickens had died because there was all the feather boas strewn everywhere. And it was so fun, and I love that. I've done a couple of workshops with the WI, and they were just so much fun, taking people out of their out of their comfort zone, but with it being playful, you kind of hit that sweet spot quite quickly, don't you? Because it's like suddenly everyone starts to relax, and play and comedy is so powerful for that, for just and laughter, for people to just like let go of all that nonsense that but they believe about themselves that's not true, and then just drop into the body and just have fun with it.
And I think it's always interesting because that you say it's out of our comfort zone, and it is, but also it's putting us back into a natural state of who we are as women, as sensual sexual beings. And so it's interesting how we're talking about it, how it did make us come out of our comfort zone, but really, why should it be that difficult to come out of that comfort zone, to tap into something that's innately, there for all women to enjoy and experience? And is it because we just suppress it, or we don't express it, or are we not allowed to express it? I mean, I suppose that's another topic in itself, isn't it? But it's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's just the projection, that's misogyny, that's the patriarchy, that's the stuff that we're battling with. And so people stay in their comfort zone because it feels safe, because inside your comfort zone there's not so much, you're judging yourself, but there's less self-judgment, there's less fear of judgment, and so also staying in the comfort zone keeps you limited. And so as an artist, you constantly have to step out of your comfort zone, or you'd never make anything. You just have to leap, and because someone's not going to like it and someone's going to criticize you, but the payoff is that you're having a ball, or you're saying something really important, and it will reach someone, and as long as it's authentic. Absolutely.
Yeah. So what would you say are the top tips in terms of your beautiful, colorful, creative wisdom that you would pass on and share and inspire others to tap into their creativity? What would could you think of a couple of things that would be like the basic stepping stones, from that creation of an idea through to the execution, if you could break it down? So it's a big question, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say first and foremost, get out your own way. So, the procrastination is really a thief of time. It really is. People will spend so much time worrying about the process instead of just throwing themselves in. Like, just kick yourself up the bum, light a fire in your gusset and go for it. I mean, literally, we're not here very long, are we? We're not on this planet very long in this incarnation. So it's like, and because you'll look back and you'll go, why didn't I just do it? And so often people find something that they love doing. They go, oh, I wish I'd started this years ago. And it's not even about finding it, is that it's just they didn't take that step, that leap of faith,
Yeah.
you know, and
or light the fire when they gusset, basically, is what I'm saying. They do.
Right, I was gonna write a book years ago. I was gonna call it "The Fire in My Gusset." But people find that word hilarious. It's so Yorkshire, isn't it? Oh, she's got to light a fire in her
book.
gusset.
You need to write it. Still write it. The world needs it, Shelley. The world needs it.
It's just so funny, isn't it? It's just you know, that I would say that's the biggest thing. Get out of your own way and just try things. Just try things. You know, it doesn't matter if it's a bit shit at first. It's like, you know, nobody is amazing at anything straight off unless you're a, you know, a genius prodigy, and that is super rare. And most of them, you know, that exist would spend hours doing something anyway. You know, everything takes repetition to become better than it is. So it's basically having a go, being playful about it, like stripping away the judgments and expectations, and being childlike and playful about it. And then, you know, like I said, you can look at it and go, whatever it is, and go, oh, that's not great, or it's not quite right, or no, and then you can spend loads of time doing that, or you could just share it with the world. You know, I know it's not that easy to get things offline when they're online, but or you could just share it with friends. You know, you can share it in group chats, or send it to email it to a friend if you want feedback. But I would always say do things for yourself first, and then anybody else enjoying it is a bonus.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Yeah, it's a great tip. So tell us a little bit about the projects you're working on at the moment then, because I know that you've been doing some amazing paintings that you turned into an oracle deck, which I'm very grateful to be an owner of. So how did you kind of go through that process? Was that just an inspiration that you got one day? And because again, that came out of nowhere. One day I was chatting to you, the next day you do this oracle deck.
Yeah, and it really did come out of nowhere. So before that, I would have an idea for a show, and then that kind of spark of inspiration would be there, and then it was almost like there'd be conception, and it would take about 6 months to a year, or maybe 2, until that thing came into existence. But as soon as I had a deadline, then I'd make it. And the same thing, so I do need a deadline for something to come into existence. So yeah, this oracle deck, I had the idea late, and I remember when it was late 2017. I was like, I'm going to paint an oracle deck. So before that, I was not a visual artist. I hadn't done art since I was at school, and I'd only done GCSE art. I'd never painted on canvas. So I painted, I was going for 40 cards in the deck. And as soon as I started, they came through thick and fast. It's like, so for me as well, so this is another tip, is commitment.
Right.
So if you're wishy-washy, nothing will happen. But the minute you commit, the universe will conspire and use you as a vessel. And so so many people have the same idea at the same time, and then you're like, how did that person do that? I thought of that years ago. And it's like, because that person committed to doing it. And so I started with a couple of paintings, and then over a year I probably painted 50 paintings, and 40 of them made it into the deck. And they started colourful, and then they ended up being blue and gold, and then that felt right. And that's actually a really hard colour to use, the gold on the blue, because you can't paint over it. So they were all I never planned any of them. I painted them bang in the moment, and then I ended up with an oracle deck. And so in order to get the oracle deck created, again, deadline. So I'd painted them all. And to fund it, I did a crowdfunder. So I happened to join an arts collective. And of course, again, the universe conspiring, I joined this arts collective that I just stumbled across. I happened to be living in Yorkshire just for a very short period of time, stumbled across this arts collective, Raw, Rotherham Open Arts Collective. And, you know, within, I'd say, days, I found out about that oracle decks and tarot cards were massive on Kickstarter. So that was the universe going, this is how we can get them made. So I popped them on Kickstarter. It was my first ever crowdfunding. It went through. That, you know, that supported the creation of the decks. That was, I popped them on there late 2019, and I hadn't planned this, but they went through on winter solstice on the 21st of December.
Wow, nice.
And weirdly enough, they sold out on the 20th of December last year. So they did a full cycle. So I'm just about to launch another Kickstarter. Well, and yeah, exactly. So, you know, and I didn't officially plan that. So, you know, just showing that, you know, interesting, isn't it, that the cycles. So I learned a lot in that process. And again, I let go of perfection. They weren't how I wanted them to be or envisioned them to be, but I just let go of that. And, you know, women are using them all around the world, and they're supporting them, or, you know, supporting them and guiding them all around the world. And now I could have held on to them and been like, oh, they're not right, but I just let go and let them get out there. So yes, I'm just launching another Kickstarter, so that for a reprint, and they are going to be upgraded to how I wanted them to be originally, because I've had all the artwork photographed professionally now. So yeah, it's really exciting, because you know, there's a whole other birthing of them now. They're a toddler now. They've grown. Yeah, so it's amazing. Yeah.
So if anybody wanted to get in touch with you about the Oracle deck, or, you know, ask you any questions, what's the best way to do that? Do you have a website?
Yeah, so funnily enough, I've just launched a new website, which is ambertopaz.org, org for orgasm.
I like it.
And I've literally launched it. I've literally launched that today, because I already have a performing website. So I'm just building that at the moment, but it has some information on there. Also, you know, all the social medias. I'm still on all of those platforms for the moment. Okay. And my Kickstarter, I believe that should be launched as Amber Topaz as well, rather than the Wombiverse. So yeah, all of that is going to be out there, and I will be delivering an e-course very soon as well, so that's exciting.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me today. I've loved talking to you as always.
Well, I love you anyway, so
I love you too, darling. And if that's put a fire in all your gussets today watching this, please subscribe. And we've got to get back together and do many more of these chats. And I know you've got some other creative projects in the pipeline, which are really exciting and very controversial. So we want to be talking about those here. So we'll definitely get you back and chat more. But thank you so much, my darling friend. And thank you everybody for watching and listening, and see you soon. Lots of love. Take care.
Thank you for having me.